Ready to go to work?
All right, guys, we're going to get started now, and I will bring out Mayor Mike Duggan.
All right, we are today changing the way affordable housing is built in the city of Detroit. We're going to make it a lot simpler, a lot faster. So developers like Edward Carrington, who's here today, raise your hand, building this beautiful project on East Warren. This is a project he came up with in early 2020. He's getting it built in late 2024. It is the story of so many developers who have so many different hurdles through all of the complications. And it was people like Mr. Carrington, Rod Hardeman, and the others who came to us and said, if we're going to keep up with the demand of this city, we got to change the way that we do this. The city of Detroit has built $1 billion in affordable housing over 5 years. And it's because we have a rare thing going on here. The mayor and city council for the last 10 years have been completely unified, project by project, every step of the way. We have succeeded in avoiding the tent encampments, unlike almost every other major city in America. But the way we've done it has been in significant part because of relationships with the Obama and Biden administrations. And we're building hundreds of units in Corktown with a HUD Choice Grant. We're building hundreds of units with American Rescue Plan money. We're also building hundreds of units with private philanthropy in the Housing for the Future Fund. Those are one-time funding sources that are going to go away. The state of Michigan has never really been a player in helping to build affordable housing. And so we were really pleased last year when the state legislature enacted Public Act 229. And in the past, this is probably a little bit technical, but the only state tax breaks that were available were either a 210 property tax abatement or a neighborhood enterprise zone. They were enormously convoluted. You couldn't get a break for more than 12 years. And just as you go and get 30-year financing for a mortgage on your house, people like Mr. Carrington, when they go to get a building, would like to finance the buildings over 30 years. But when you say, sorry, after 12 years, my costs are going to pop way up, you made it extremely difficult. And the other thing that those tax abatements required was multiple city and state hearings. It took 8 to 10 months to get approved. It really was not all that helpful. But when the new act went into effect, Councilman Durhall got together with our Housing and Revitalization Department and said, you realize that this new pilot law doesn't require all those hearings. It allows you to have a 15-year abatement with the chance to renew for 15 years. This could work for 30 years. But instead of going one rental at a time through city council, what if we created a fast track? And the leaders behind me in council did this once before. When I started as mayor, if you wanted to buy the vacant side lot next to your house, you needed an individual action of city council for every single one. It was impossible. Council changed the process to create a fast track. People, as they know in this town, can buy that side lot for $100, and we've sold more than 25,000 of them. It has sped up the moving of the vacant land from the city to private owners. And what the fast track does is says to a developer, if you're willing to commit to low rent for the next 15 years, you can get a fast track for a tax break. And if you'll take an abandoned apartment building, we'll actually give you twice as big a tax break. So instead of knocking down these beautiful old buildings, we can get them reused. So I want to thank Councilman Durhall for doing the work on this. And he partnered with Council President Mary Sheffield, who 10 years ago led the effort for the first inclusionary housing ordinance and the Housing Trust Fund, and Council Member Mary Waters, who when we were facing evictions, sponsored Detroit Housing Services as a whole team of people who, when they are housing insecure, have a place to go. And I don't know if, and then he got here on time. Councilmember Coleman Young said, we need to make sure people can make some more money as these rents are going up, because these rents in this neighborhood, you could rent a house here 6 or 8 years ago for $800 without a problem. And I got to $1,000, and I got to $1,200. It's going to be $1,400. If we do not build more affordable housing, all those Detroiters who stayed are ultimately going to get pushed out. This is a tax break for our low to moderate income residents. When you give the developer a $300 a month break, it goes straight to the tenant in a $300 rent reduction. This is the only time where low-income tenants can get their own property tax break. And so Councilmember Coleman Young sponsored Jumpstart to let people make an extra $400 or $600 a month so they didn't get evicted. All 4 of them have been a key part of why we are here today. And so I'd like to ask my partners in City Council, who have been responsible for the $1 billion over the last 5 years, but are now going to make it possible to do another $1 billion in the next 5 years. Councilmember Durhal and the other 3 sponsors of this legislation, please come forward.
Thank you and good afternoon to you all. First, I want to thank the mayor for his partnership. What he says is true. Our council, as well as the administration, has stood united here in the city of Detroit for one of our biggest crises, which is affordable housing, ensuring that residents have housing that they can stay in and that they can pay for. So thank you, Mr. Mayor, for your leadership, as well as all my amazing colleagues who have been champions, each and every one of them on their specific ordinances. Big shout out to member Letitia Johnson, whose district we are in, the wonderful District 4. So I first want to start off by just giving a little bit of the history. I know the mayor touched on it. For me, this is really personal. When I left the state legislature back in 2019, I went to work for the Michigan State Housing Development Authority. And at that time, I had the opportunity to travel our state, some of the biggest cities in our state. Obviously, the biggest is the city of Detroit. And one of the things when we talked about affordable housing and learning housing in depth was some of the reasons why it's not affordable is because what exists are these processes. These processes that are put off on developers, particularly small minority developers, that don't allow them to bring their projects into fruition very quickly. And although the pilot has already existed in state law, when the legislature enacted in 2022 that public act that allowed cities and municipalities to determine how they want to utilize affordable housing without needing federal approval or going through the federal process, this again became a tool in the toolbox. And so I got to give a special shout out to Don Rencher, who is no longer here, but also Ms. Julie Snyder as well for their leadership and working on this, as well as my entire team. But the beauty of this pilot project does a couple things. Many folks hear how we talk about tax abatements here in the city of Detroit. We are actually, on some of these projects, at a tax abatement cliff. So what folks wonder when these abatements expire is what will the rents look like? And will some of these go into market rate rental, which often leads to displacement for residents? We've all heard the stories. So when we talk about this program allowing 15 years of affordability, even after those tax abatements expire, locking developers into providing affordable housing and workforce housing, this is a game changer. But most importantly, what that law did when it was passed in Lansing was allow for workforce housing, something that you'll hear me talk about a little bit more in the upcoming weeks when we talk about Detroit and how a vision for Detroit is important. We have what is called a missing middle, meaning that you're not necessarily low income, but you don't make enough to afford market rate housing. This helps close the gap all the way up to 120% AMI, assuring that rents stay affordable, that is not based off of property values, but the actual rent that residents can pay. This helps with inequalities that may exist with housing. And so I am honored to stand here today to support, sponsor with my colleagues and push this ordinance forward. This is something that is needed for the city of Detroit when we talk about housing for our residents, when we talk about having the ability to maximize our resources, fast track it to ensure we can get our residents into this great city that we continue to build. And with that, I've had an amazing partner on council who has been there every step of the way, dealing with our housing issues here in the city of Detroit. It's my honor to introduce Council President Mary Sheffield.
Let's give it up again for Councilmember Durhal, who has been at the forefront of this initiative to fast track affordable housing in the city of Detroit. It is an honor to stand here with our Mayor Duggan, and all of my colleagues as we take another important step towards addressing one of the most important and pressing issues that are facing our city, and that is affordable housing. Housing is a basic human right, and as many of you know, affordable housing has been at the heart of my work here at the City Council. I've made it my mission to ensure that all Detroiters, regardless of their income, has access to safe and affordable places to call home. From creating the city's first ever inclusionary housing ordinance, which also created the city's first housing trust fund, to right to counsel that protects residents from evictions, I have been committed to addressing this issue from all angles. And I've also learned over the last 11 years how difficult and complex it can be for developers to actually do these projects. The high cost of construction, high property tax rates, and sometimes it's not feasible to achieve the level of subsidy that we're seeking in some of these projects. And so this pilot program is a critical tool in our efforts to incentivize the creation of affordable housing across our city. What's also exciting about this pilot program is its potential to benefit small and emerging developers, those who traditionally don't have access to larger incentives that are often reserved for bigger developments. By committing to affordable rental levels, these smaller developers are able to tie their property taxes to the rent that they charge. This means that those who charge high rents will pay higher taxes. Simple as that. Those who charge lower rents will pay lower taxes. It levels the playing field for responsible, small-scale investors and developers who are making a difference in our neighborhoods. But it's important to note that this opportunity doesn't come without responsibility. Developers can only qualify for this pilot if they make the necessary investments in their properties and if they maintain those properties over time, which we know is also a critical issue in our city. This ensures that the housing that we create remains a sustainable and livable option for our residents. It's not just about building affordable housing, it's also about building housing that lasts, that uplifts our community, and that remains affordable for years to come. Housing must be affordable, and that affordability must be protected long term. And that is why this pilot ordinance and program is essential. It provides the financial incentives that make it possible for developers to build affordable housing projects and keep them affordable for years to come. I am so proud of the progress that we have made collectively, my colleagues and I, as well with the administration, but I'm also aware that there is still so much work to be done. We need to continue to push for policies and programs that support affordable housing development, prevent displacement, and allow for Detroiters of all income levels to benefit from the growth that we're seeing here in the city of Detroit. So I'm looking forward to sponsoring this ordinance that will ensure access to more quality affordable housing in our city. And with that being said, we will continue to bring up more sponsors of the ordinance. I will bring up next Councilwoman at Large, the Quiet Storm, Councilmember Waters.
Well, thank you and good afternoon, everyone. Mayor Duggan and his team, I'm always so very grateful for the partnership, because without the partnership, we could not get these things done on behalf of the residents here in the city of Detroit. And so at last, we have a real affordable rentals driven by Detroit income realities with structural compliance to lessen probabilities that housing will not sink to project uninhabitable status. I love the fit for human beings and its potential. So, there is no shortage of advocacy amongst all of us. And we all understand that housing, like water and energy, is certainly a human right. It is. And we strive to make a difference every single day. We put together a team a few years ago when we first arrived with Member Johnson, Callaway, and Santiago Romero, the $203 million housing initiative. Out of that was born down payment assistance, the call center. You all probably remember all of those things. 1-866-313-2520 will address all of your housing issues. We encourage the community to reach out to us. And let me just say that as a team, part of Team Waters, we try to take a holistic approach because people become homeless for various reasons. There's no one size that fits all. And so when we take that holistic approach, there are issues such as safety, right? I'm going to give you an example. We helped out, you recall the little 11-month-old baby, Kamaya Davis, who fell through a hole in the floor and died because she drowned in water and feces in the basement. That's one issue. Then there are domestic violence issues too, where people become homeless. And we are working with a lady now and her 3 children who need housing right now. We're trying to get them placed. Domestic violence, sometimes, that's unavoidable. When somebody decides to threaten your life, you have to go. And that's what this mom and her 3 children were doing. Then there's another lady who we recently helped. She had to relocate because she was having issues with her landlord. Her landlord tried to have sex with her, threatened her with a gun. These are real, true stories. These are real life issues. Then you have the unemployment issues. And that is why I'm so glad that we have the programs such as Jumpstart and Skills for Life. We have to, and we absolutely must take the holistic approach. When people call us, I say, okay, we've got to find out where they work, because even when we find them a place to live, they have to be able to afford it, right? So we try to help them to find gainful employment. We have these issues. We have a crisis here. And of course, I'm not going to give up on the 30 to 50% AMI income base. And this is a great start with this particular ordinance, because we have to deal with people at all levels. And again, I want to thank my colleagues. I want to thank Mayor Duggan for always be willing to work with us to ensure that Detroiters have a decent and safe place to live. Thank you. Okay. All right, now let me bring up number 1. You all know him, right? That is Member Coleman A. Young II.
With that introduction, I'm ready to go home. Wow, that was amazing. Now, before I begin, I just want to say, let's give thanks to Mayor Duggan one more time for all he's done. $1 billion investment in affordable housing, that's a big deal. Over 5 years, that's a big deal. Secondly, I also want to thank my colleague, Member Gerhall, for being the sponsor, as well as President Sheffield for her leadership on this issue. And I also want to give a very special thank you to Eddie Carrington for the investment in the ribbon and the work that he's doing for affordable housing within the city of Detroit. Can we give him a round of applause? Homes are not just bricks and beams. They are hopes and dreams. And today what we are doing is we are enshrining, we are protecting, and we are expanding the American dream of home ownership for everyone within the city of Detroit. For everybody that lost their house, for people who work 2-3 jobs and can't afford to have a house, for the butcher, the baker, the candlestick maker, the police officer, the firefighter, the teacher, who long wanted to live in the city of Detroit but couldn't afford it, we are now providing a way to make that happen. And what I love about this proposal, besides making it more efficient by reducing a process from 8 to 10 months to 1 to 2, also, the deeper the affordability, the bigger the tax cut. We are literally using our tax code to be able to incentivize providing one of the most precious resources you can, affordable housing in the city of Detroit. Not just for those who want to come, but also for those who stay through the good times and through the bad times, through bankruptcy and now through this abundance of blessing called the city of Detroit. This is for you. And so I just wanted to say in conclusion, the test of progress is not adding to the abundance of those that already have. It is providing for the least of these. It is my humble honor and privilege to be part of a legislation that is providing for those in the city of Detroit who've been hurting the worst, providing for those in the city of Detroit who have long wanted to have their own home, be able to do so. I am honored, I am privileged, I am blessed. I want to thank all my colleagues for allowing me to be a part of this. And without further ado, I would like to introduce the woman, the myth, the legend, the legacy herself, I'll call her Congresswoman, Councilwoman Letitia Johnson, everybody.
Thank you so much, Member Young. And I wasn't planning on speaking today, but I'm here because we're in District 4. I'm here because I wanted to come to support this important initiative and to say thank you to my colleagues, thank you to the administration, and to also recognize the amazing work that Eddie Carrington is doing in this district. I'm sure Eddie Carrington is going to get up here and he'll share with you how this program could have impacted the project that's behind us. But two things I want to share that have been shared, but just give a different context to it. Member Santiago Romero and I co-chaired the Equitable Development Task Force. Our focus is really on helping to streamline internal processes. We didn't have to do this, but it got done. It's getting done by my colleagues. Streamlining the process for small developers, for minority developers, is extremely important because we all know that time is money. Time is money. So when small developers have the ability to go through a process a lot quicker, they get to save money and invest those dollars into their project. That's phenomenal within itself. The other thing is, we need to make sure that everyone recognizes that when the developers are able to save dollars in doing their development project, they get to pass those savings on to all of the renters within their development. And so as we look at the neighborhood surrounding this building, Mayor Duggan, I've seen duplexes rent for $1,500, $1,600 in this neighborhood. Having the pilot program in effect that gives the developer the ability to reduce that rental rate helps to avoid displacing residents and families from our district. I have a resident today, Ms. Rosie White, who sent me an email about a property that she lives in, that she's renting in District 4, that's in deplorable condition. So not only will this program help to create affordable units, it helps to create quality affordable units for our residents. And most people know that my population in District 4 has been declining. This is the time for us to start increasing our population by moving residents from deplorable housing to quality affordable housing and keeping them in the district. And so I applaud my colleagues, I applaud HRD and the administration for all of the work that you all have done. And if you all will see this, we're kind of on repeat. Affordable housing is extremely vital for us here in the city of Detroit. We're working to make sure that we don't displace any of our residents. And so I'm glad to be here to support my colleagues and all of the hard work and the efforts that are going into creating quality affordable housing in the city. And I'm not sure if my colleague, Member Santiago Romero, would like to come up now and have a few words.
Thank you, Member Johnson. Good afternoon, everyone.
I will be brief. I really don't believe that there hasn't been anything that hasn't already been shared. Affordable housing is incredibly important to us. The one thing that I will share that I didn't necessarily hear, if I missed it, I apologize, I'm a little late. But this again is because of the efforts of our smaller developers. We've met with Reed, we've met with smaller developers. They have showed us how difficult it is. We've seen the performers. They look, the math is not mathing, y'all. So we understand that we need to help our folks. We need to help smaller Black and brown developers who care about our residents. And I'm excited to be here. I'm grateful to Member Durhal for leading these efforts. As Member Johnson said, we're a team. If someone's gonna lead it, we'll stand behind you, we'll support you. So I'm here to support. I'm excited about the work that we're doing. I don't know who else is next. I believe our director, Julie Snyder.
So thank you all for coming this afternoon. I just wanted to start by sharing a story. A couple years ago, I was at a housing innovation fair, and I overheard this conversation, and someone began talking about affordable housing. And the response they got from someone else was, "Whoa, now you're talking about the A word," as though it was a bad thing. In the city of Detroit, I've never heard that. And you can see that demonstrated here by the amazing support, of course, from Mayor Duggan, who's been a leader on this his entire time as the mayor of the city of Detroit, but also this city council. To be here with the support of this city council, the leadership of Councilmember Durhal, Council President Sheffield, Councilmember Waters, Councilmember Santiago Romero, Councilmember Young, Councilmember Johnson. Councilmember Young. It really shows their support and how important affordable housing is. In 2018, we released a multifamily affordable housing strategy. We wanted to signal the importance of affordable housing in Detroit, that affordable housing will be a part of Detroit's growth story and not a response to it. We've developed $1 million in affordable housing since that announcement. As federal resources are decreasing, we must think about how we are going to continue to add to affordable housing. How can we look at our processes to help improve and help to continue to signal the importance of both low income and moderate income housing? And we are doing that here today through the pilot. To develop affordable housing, more affordable housing, we need more developments. We need more developers. And that is one of the reasons why the pilot is also, I think, going to be so impactful. As Councilmember Santiago Romero, Council President Sheffield talked about the importance of being able to encourage Black and brown developers, emerging developers, to participate in the growth that is happening in Detroit. This helps to remove barriers, and it helps to increase time. And of course, as has been noted, time is money. To talk about just what that experience is like, how this will help the development community, I want to start bringing up our developers. We're going to start off with Edward Carrington, who's the developer of the Ribbon. We hope to be here in just a short while to celebrate the opening. But Edward, if you would come up and talk about the Ribbon.
All right, good afternoon, everybody. My name is Eddie Carrington, once again, founder of Flux City Development. And today we stand in front of my firm's first commercial development called The Ribbon. We're currently transforming this site into a mixed-use facility with commercial space on the ground level and 18 apartments up top. Of those apartments, 100% of those apartments will be affordable, specifically reserved for renters within the 80% AMI range or below. This development is deed restricted, meaning I am legally bound to charge rents capped at 80% AMI and below. This restriction is due to the type of funding required to fill the large gap that affordable housing projects like this often face. But more specifically, we're here to talk about tax abatements, the critical tool that makes affordable housing developments like the Ribbon financially feasible by helping cover operating costs and service debt. Originally, we sought an OPRA or a 12-year tax abatement, but due to a change in strategy, we pivoted and secured a PA 210, which basically grants us a 10-year tax abatement. The abatement process took a significant amount of time and was one of the most time-consuming parts of getting this project off the ground. overall, I spent around 10 months working with the DEGC and City Council to gain the necessary abatement approvals. It was also one of the last approvals needed before we could close our loans and begin construction. Once the PA 210 basically runs out in 10 years, the taxes could more than double on a per unit basis with regard to the apartment units up top. We developers call this the abatement cliff, which puts projects like mine in a tough financial position. And because this development is deed restricted for affordability, raising rents to cover the higher taxes is not an option. This is why developers like me, who prioritize impact over profit by focusing on adding affordable units to our city, must have more options in place for our projects to make long-term financial sense. This is why the proposed pilot expansion is a game changer for affordable housing developers such as myself. The pilot program ties the property's tax liability to its rental revenue, not its inflated market rate, making it much easier for affordable housing projects like the Ribbon to remain financially viable. For example, instead of paying property taxes based on inflated real estate values, developers would pay a service charge based on a percentage of their rental income. And this predictable and manageable tax structure ensures that projects like this can continue to serve low and moderate income families. So the program really quickly offers a number of key benefits, including reduced financial risk. The lower predictable tax liability gives developers room to absorb rising construction costs, higher interest rates, and other challenges that might otherwise derail a project. Faster approvals. The pilot approval process is streamlined, reducing a typical 6-month plus timeline to roughly 4 weeks, allowing developers to bring much needed affordable housing to Detroit quicker. And long-term affordability. With lower tax rates locked in, developers can ensure stable, high-quality housing for Detroit residents at prices they can afford. So these benefits are why the expanded pilot program for the city of Detroit is so essential. It's not just a tax break, it's a lifeline for affordable housing. It bridges financial gaps, ensures long-term affordability, and gives developers like me the tools we need to make projects like the Ribbon a reality. With the expanded program, we could see over 1,500 new affordable units added per year, providing significant relief to Detroit's housing crisis. So in conclusion, we stand at a critical juncture. The housing crisis we face is real, and it won't solve itself. But with tools like the pilot program, we have a path forward. And this isn't just about numbers or percentages, it's about people. It's about families who need a stable place to live, and it's about ensuring that Detroit remains a city where everyone can afford to call home. So I do urge the City Council to support this expansion. Developers like me are ready to take the next step, but we need the right tools to make it happen. The pilot program is one of those tools. And so together we can build a more affordable, equitable future for Detroit. Thank you.
Thank you. And next up, a leader in Detroit's development community, a leader among the real estate Association of Developers, the READ Group, as they're referred, and a leader in investing in Black and brown developers through the EBR Fund, Rob Hartman.
It's a good day today. A lot of us work really hard to try to find ways to produce and provide high quality affordable housing. Through our work at EBR, we spend time with hundreds of developers, helping them think through and understand how can you make these development projects work? How do you provide more affordable housing? And what we find is that it's just not about how hard, even though the programs and the projects are challenging and hard, each of the developers cares. They actually want to produce more affordable housing. And so this pilot initiative will allow us to produce more, will allow us to invest more of our capital into the neighborhoods to produce more high quality, let's focus on that, high quality affordable housing for all of our residents. This is something that will benefit the residents, not just the homeowners, but the renters themselves, because it incentivizes developers to invest their money to protecting rents for our residents. That's important and that's key. And because when you think about this, you've heard the word partnership a lot, everyone up here. This is a partnership between the city and the developers. It's a partnership between the city and developers. We will invest money collectively to bring down rents so that we can provide stable, high quality, affordable housing. And because of that commitment, because of that partnership, READ, the Real Estate Association of Developers, is strongly supportive of this pilot ordinance. We stand behind it, we support it, and we believe holistically that it will produce a significant amount of affordable housing in the neighborhoods and to the residents who need it most. Thank you.
Next up, I want to introduce one of my original educators on affordable housing. Back when I was a student in grad school, it was the first time I interacted with our next speaker, who really focused on the power of Detroit's neighborhoods, and it certainly was an impactful experience in my career. And so happy to be here to welcome Linda Smith, Executive Director of USNAP back.
Good afternoon to the Mayor, City Council. Thank you for supporting this initiative for a pilot. USNAPBAC is the owner and the developer. I'm a housing developer also, not too far from here. 94 units of affordable housing. And because of the pilot that we received years ago, we're able to keep the rent affordable. We have not had to go up on the rent. If we were to go up, it would not be affordable, because every day someone calls me, do I want to sell? And I say, unless you're going to keep it affordable, and the answer is no and no. A pilot supports affordable housing by tying the property tax liability to rental revenue. The benefit to residents means that the existing affordability, it enables acquisitions by developers to be accountable to the community. Let me say that again. Accountable to the community. Incentivize and enable reinvestment in the building or the properties that we are developing. It also allows us to do maintenance and keep up the units, because when you don't have to pay the high property taxes at the level in which they're being assessed, it allows you to put back into the project. So today, I am so excited that buildings are being maintained with quality by the developer at all times during the lifetime of the project. So I say today again to the mayor, to the council, thank you for bringing this initiative forward, and we hope to see everyone support on this positive that's coming to our neighborhoods, affordable housing.
And before I bring up our next speaker, I just want to acknowledge those that have been working to make this happen. As met from Councilmember Durhal's office, Rebecca LeBeau, Kevin Bain, Christina Shaw, and Tim Stark. Thank you for all of your work in getting us to this point. So we hear from Detroiters needing affordable housing each and every day. To talk about that, Chelsea Neblett, the director of Detroit's Housing Services Office, is here to share those stories.
Thank you and good afternoon. My name is Chelsea Neblett and I am the program director for our Detroit Housing Services Office. Our team works with hundreds of residents each and every single day that are seeking safe, affordable, sustainable housing options. With the support from the mayor and city council, we launched the Detroit Housing Resource Helpline in May of 2023. The helpline was created to provide a single, streamlined point of entry for residents that need housing-related resources and support. This year alone, there have been 4,200 calls to the helpline for affordable housing. The city's affordable housing website, Detroit Home Connect, has seen 8,000 visits in the past 12 months. The Detroit Housing Services Office, a 70-person team located within the Housing Revitalization Department, provides direct relocation case management to over 1,700 households. Though direct service is critical, we cannot case manage our way out of the need for more safe and affordable housing units in the city of Detroit. We need to do more because the need is greater. We need to bring safe and affordable units online that work for the residents of the city, but also developers that are committed to affordable housing developments throughout the city. This pilot will allow the developers to pass cost savings on to residents, providing much needed relief to combat rising rental costs. Housing affordability is linked not only to individual household stability, but the stability of our city. I am proud to live in and work for a city that is not only committed to prioritizing affordable housing and affordability preservation, but we're also leading the way, so that when the next 4,200 callers call the helpline for affordable housing, we have additional resources to provide support. Thank you.
And if we haven't covered everything, we'll take any questions. Yes.
I'm wondering if you can talk about, so if this proposed ordinance passes, would it be the first of its kind in the city? And then a second part to that question is, did you look at any other cities that are already doing something like this, either in Michigan or across the country?
So pilots exist in the state. What doesn't exist in the state is a fast track. And so the developers here could talk about this, but if they were developing tomorrow in Ferndale or Pontiac, they'd have to go through the same process of step by step, through this hearing, through this meeting, etc. If council adopts this ordinance, and we got a good number of members here, every developer in Ohio, in Indiana, in Illinois, and Michigan will be able to look and say, if I build in Detroit, the lower my rent is, the lower my tax breaks are, I know going in right now what I can get. That's what's different, is the fast track, and we think it is going to significantly speed up investment, particularly from the small developers in the city.
So just to clarify, once this is passed, there will be no more need for individual approval of pilots for developments?
Not for pilots at these levels. If you want to pilot at a higher level, you still go to city council. If you are going through historic development, you still go to city council. If you're getting block grants, you go to city council. What we are doing is creating a fast track for those cases where we have a developer who says, I really could use that basically 70-80% break in my taxes, and I'm willing to commit to low rent for the next 15 years. So it creates a path for some of their projects. They'll use the fast track path. Other projects will be much more complicated and they won't. But I think you're going to see a lot of the smaller developers use the fast track until they get to the point they can do the really big projects.
In addition to all the benefits we talked about, is part of this helping get us off of our reliance on tax abatements and
No, I mean this is tax capture. That's what it is. And some people criticize it. I believe in it. So what we would be doing is what was here, basically a vacant lot after Eddie got done knocking down the building that was here. Instead of a lot that captured nothing in taxes, what we are saying is the taxes we would capture go to lowering the rent on the people who live here long term. So as Council Member Johnson pointed out, the rents in this neighborhood are rising. People who could easily rent a house here at a low cost are being pushed out. Now they're going to have another option here. But it's because we allow the developer to capture the taxes and lower the rent in the neighborhood. That's what this is all about, is a fast track to lower rents. Every dollar that they will get in breaks plus are going to go to lower rents, right? Anything else? All right, thank you all very much.